Hello, hello. Welcome to our next episode of No Lids, No Limits. I'm Kin from Canada, and my partner is back this week, Arik.
Yes, hello back. Hello, welcome, Kin. I'm so happy to be back with you.
It's so nice to have our conversation again. And we've had a couple of very distinguished guests over the last few weeks and getting some really interesting conversation about marketing, other AI systems, ERP systems. But recently, we both went through a bit of a change in our lives because of daylight savings times. And I think this is a really interesting topic because I think everyone complains about it. Nobody likes it. Why do we even do it? I don't know. Why, Arik?
I don't know, you tell me, because if I remember, that has always been with us. And actually, since I remember, there was a discussion, do we really need that? Because, yeah, we needed that when their electricity was not with us and we need to, blow our candles and everything. But now I'm not sure why do we do that. And European Union actually has been discussing this, I don't know for how long, but it has been a very long discussion. And they're almost like, we're close, but then we take a step back and then nothing happens. So, yeah, I hope you are making a much better example out of that, Kin.
My goodness, we have the same problem here in Canada. We've been talking about it forever, and really spending a lot of government resources debating and referendums with the public to ask for people's opinions. And I think where I reside in Vancouver, our British Columbian provincial government had already passed the bill and passed the legislature to go ahead with remain permanently on daily savings time. For years, since the bill was passed, we've been waiting for our biggest trade partner, the Americans, the United States, particularly the West Coast states, which is Washington, Oregon, and California, because we wanted
Hmm.
to align, because we all basically share the same Pacific Standard Time Zone, or Pacific Daily Savings Time Zone. We wanted to make sure that the things are aligned, but I wonder if that's ever necessary to align. So I think daylight savings time is interesting because I remember it as far back as I can remember being in Canada, and that was many, many years ago. I was born in Hong Kong and raised in Asia, and we didn't have daylight savings time. And as far as I know, I don't think there is daylight savings time in Asia right now.
So what I actually researched, they did the trial from 1986 to 1992, but that was enough for them to say this makes no sense and we don't want to go further, and it's done. So from 1996, it has not been there, and we just cannot take the lesson. It takes us a little bit more time to digest it, I guess.
Yeah, my research showed me that daylight savings time actually started quite some time ago. It was first proposed by George Hudson in New Zealand as far back as 1895. And the whole idea was to essentially extend the usable daylight hours because of our circadian rhythm, how people tend to work and function better when there's daylight out. And I can see the case for this if you're living way down in New Zealand, but does this really work in Europe and North America? How do you feel about this, Eric?
No, I have never been a fan. And, I'm always a fan when we go backwards, when we can sleep 1 hour longer. But with all due, seriousness, I like this change. So now that we just
Yeah.
did it, we just went to the springtime, and then it should just stay. This is how it's supposed to be. This is how the rhythm works. And then there are so many implications for people, for the systems, for the surrounding, that we should just stay on this. And, hopefully at some point of time, someone will make the decision right. And then we will just follow the great example of your or the Asian continent.
I heard on the news, and British Columbia is kind of the first to go for it, even though the US is still waiting for congressional approval for the Pacific West Coast states. British Columbia is taking the lead and essentially saying, screw them. We're going to do it regardless, and we're going to go ahead and make this happen. Let's talk a little bit about ramifications of that, Eric. I mean, a lot of the systems and things we use in our daily work, it's kind of closely tied to the computer, to our mobile phones.
Hmm. Hmm.
Where do you see the impact of these time shifts or time changes when you cross state lines or international borders?
Yeah, I would say I see three layers here. First of all is the people. I'm not really talking about all my kind of non-digital devices where every time I need to change the time on them, or I just leave them as they are, and then 6 months from now they will be okay. But think about it: you need to adjust different rhythm that you had. I know it's only 1 hour, but it's still, how do you do that, and how do you cope with this for how long? So that has the implication on people, and also looking at the EMSs, if it has the implication of the workers, then they also have a little bit different flexibility and a little bit approach to the work. And also the research shows that there is a spike of errors every time we make the change. So that's something, right? So that, I would say, people is one thing. Then the second thing, think how many devices that we have in, for example, EMS, ERP, MES, that there's this timestamp of an operation, and then suddenly there is a change. I was watching Formula One over the weekend, and for me it was, I was already adjusted because the change went earlier, but for them in Japan it was crazy because it was 1 and then it went to like 3 p.m. and people were like, okay, what's going on? So this kind of timestamps in the system, how much issue it is generating for everybody to just always remember that and making those change. And then the third one is the surrounding. So if we're talking about the Asian continent already being not using this, then getting us on this time, it's actually 1 hour closer. So why don't we just stay and work with the suppliers a little bit better? Yeah, that's the kind of 3 cents I have. I don't know. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I think I definitely agree with the alignment of that. It's a very good perspective of seeing the effects of the time change. I think of it more as the effects of the time change when it potentially causes errors in our work.
Hmm.
Certainly the people part, when you're thinking about time, we don't often think about, as you said in the Japan example, where you skip in 2 hours, and it's a little bit disorienting. But for the many years I've worked with outsourcing and reshoring work from Asia, they're
Hmm.
not on a daily savings time. In fact, China, which is oddly a very vast and wide country in terms of longitude, it's one time zone. China really should be about four time zones from east to
Hmm.
west, but they operate
Hmm.
on one single time zone. Parts of China get up very early and stay up very late, depending on whether you're east or west. And they've made this work because of, I think, I don't remember the exact history there, but maybe some of our audience can teach us. But I remember it going back to the communist government when they took power. They essentially wanted to synchronize the entire railway system of the country onto one time zone. That was the primary drive, what I recall, what I've heard. But that they made it work, and they've proven that it makes it work. And I think where I see it, part of the reason why a single time zone across China, or in this case, it translates to whatever time zone you're at, regardless of where you're on daily savings or not, is because nowadays with modern technology, our time is pretty much automatically set by whatever systems we're connected to. I know even my old Motorola cell phone would set its time to the network time, whatever the cellular network would give it. And now most of
Hmm.
our computers, of course, get its time from the internet. And more modern devices, for example, I always question, how did my car get the latest time update? And I realized, oh, it's coming from the GPS system. We have all these systems now to essentially help us tell exactly what time things are. And like when you and I schedule these meetings, our system already are automatically know, Kin's 7 a.m. or 6 a.m., depending on whether I'm on daylight savings or standard time, is RX 3 p.m., 4
3 p.m.
p.m.
Yeah.
your time. See? So time change is really kind of not really a big effect as long as each of us are aware what time zone we reside in, what effect that has. You mentioned also about systems, right? And I think the important thing with the systems beyond the computers and things like that is a lot of IoTs now we use in manufacturing. They have their own time clocks, but of course IoTs, well, the very first letter, Internet of Things. The Internet usually gives these devices that time clock and the exact time. So the automation behind the systems now to make and then manage time change makes life so much easier.
Well, I agree with you. And then from your perspective, it seems like it's not a big of a deal, right? And I would agree to some extent because it's not a big of a deal if you are in that time zone and you stay consistent in that time zone. So when you are traveling, okay, that's a different story, but then it's your choice. But then I am staying in my time zone and then the time changes for me, like someone is shaking the box for me, right? So this is what I'm saying. I don't really like it, and I really hope that once we will set on the right timing, one timing, and we're just gonna stay, regardless of what the decision will be. I'm happy to go for one or the other, but just one and not interfering with the rhythm again.
They say spring forward, fall back. It's a memory aid to help you remember which way the time clock goes. You're absolutely right, especially the spring forward part. I remember reading a report here locally in Canada, certainly in the United States, in North America. The rate of accidents actually increases the week directly after the spring forward. So in the springtime, I'm usually I tell my family to be extra careful on the road commuting because people often when they lose that hour of sleep, it is a detrimental to their health. And it's a serious concern. And we certainly notice that even in manufacturing that, productivity does go down,
There you go.
mistakes and quality defects tend to go up a little bit because people's attention is affected when that hour shift happens. Interestingly, the reverse doesn't happen. It's not like quality goes up. When we gain that hour of sleep in the fall time. I don't know whether it's because usually by the time we go back to standard time, and that's often now in the first week of November, at least here in North America, we've shifted that out back by two weeks now. That when the time falls back, that people are already have their minds on whether it's Black Friday, Thanksgiving, or Christmas coming up, which is in that deep winter time. What's your experience with that?
I like the change that is happening now. And I'm a little bit because I'm an early bird. I much rather get up early than, stay late. I'm older and, the later it gets and the more sleepy I am. So I definitely prefer this way. And from my point of view, the really thing I would like to say to our leaders is like, I don't believe we're going to follow this whole China model where there will be one time zone for all European countries. I don't think that's possible. But then I also question why are we having those discussions of 5-day working week where we still cannot just agree on not going back with this one time zone, they're talking about so many different things. Just make this decision right and then let's follow, the people from Canada with a good change. And yeah, it will be so much better for me. So that's my 3 cents only.
How many time zones does Europe have currently, Eric?
So I don't wanna make a geographical mistake, but I think at least well, depends how far you go with Europe, because if I'm thinking, I guess at least 4. So I am in Poland, then you wanna go back and then you wanna go backwards at least 1 when you're talking about the UK, and then you're going 1 more if you're talking about, the islands, like my favorite paradise on earth, which is Madeira. So these are already 2, and then moving forward, if you think about Russia, then it's already another time zones, yeah, but it's already the kind of Asian part. The European part, I believe there is 1 more time zone. If I look at Turkey, for sure there are +2, so that needs to be 4 to 5 time zones. Yeah, my geography is maybe not great, but that's what I would say right now.
Well, I just cheated and asked Gemini and on my other
Yeah,
screen here, and
and
definitely, yeah, there's 5 different time zones in Europe,
okay,
which
oof,
is so Europe is quite large, and I didn't realize most of Europe tend to be the countries where we're thinking where you are is called Central European time zone, but
yes, yes,
there's one to your west and two to
hmm
your east, which is
hmm
huge. Yeah, moving to these different time zones and I think aligning of one single time zone like what China did, I think is going to be a challenge. But certainly removing daylight savings, I think seems to
yes,
make a lot of sense. And given that nowadays, when we are running our LEDs and more energy efficient forms of lighting, the old days of saving electricity really, I don't think is a justifiable reason. So, well, let's hope that Europe does follow Canada's lead and at some
there you go.
point get rid of daylight savings time and just stay on one permanent time all through the year. And I think that's going to make everyone's life easier.
And yeah, and we would like to leave you with this, give us your feedback. What do you think about it? My humble opinion is that there are so many people, vast majority wants the change, but the change is just not happening. So if you want the change, give us a comment. And if you don't want, give us a comment as well. And just let's have a little poll beneath that.
Yeah.
Make sense, Kin?
Let's put up a poll. I think that's a great idea. All right. Let's put up a poll when we post this and let the people decide whether they like it or don't and or support it or don't in terms of daylight savings time. So drop us a comment if you have other ideas or other questions. We'd love to hear from you. Well, Eric, thank you very much for this fun conversation about daylight savings time.
Thank you, Kin. Thank you. Always a pleasure, sir. Take care. Bye bye.
All right. See you guys in the next one. Bye.